Stablecoin supply just grew by $1 billion in a single day, and this comes after growing by nearly $100 billion since the start of 2024. In fact, there's been so much bullish news on stablecoins recently that it's almost tough to keep track of. Adoption is happening now. We're getting regulatory clarity, and this may be the first use case of crypto that is really breaking into the mainstream in a major way. Today's video, I'm going to break down everything that's going on and what this means both for crypto and for macro. Now let's get into it. To start, let's look at some recent stablecoin growth numbers to understand the scale of what's going on right now. If we hop over to DeFi Llama, then we can see that the total stablecoin market cap is currently around $233 billion, and that's up by over $4 billion in the past 7 days, over $1 billion in just the past day, and $7 billion in the past 30 days. But you can see here that this growth is actually accelerating. And if we zoom out to a slightly longer time frame here, then we can see that since the start of 2024, this has grown by over $100 billion. It was around 130 billion there. Now it's around $233 billion. And I know a lot of people who maybe are not deep into the digital asset crypto space, they see stablecoins, they think of UST, which famously depegged, went to zero. What you have to understand is that that was an algorithmic stablecoin, which wasn't backed by anything. The vast majority of stablecoins now are fully backed one-to-one by either dollars or highly liquid dollar equivalents. And for example, we can filter out algorithmic stablecoins here, and we can see they actually comprise less than $1 billion of the total stablecoin supply. The rest are either backed fully by fiat or fully backed by crypto. And even if you remove the crypto ones, you can see that there's still over $200 billion. And in fact, this growth, if you look at it, is barely impacted at all by the drop in, or by the removal of crypto-backed stablecoins. So the growth is happening now. And why are stablecoins growing so quickly? Well, a big part of it is that people around the world, in many cases, would rather hold and spend US dollars than they would whatever their local currency is. And as it turns out, stablecoins are the best way to do that, especially if you're in a country that was not fully banked, or most people were not banked prior. You know, why set up a bank account in a currency that you don't really want to hold anyways, when you can hold the US dollar? And this is why recently the US Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, went in an interview and said that the US is going to preserve the dollar dominance using stablecoins. He actually said that, right? He specifically said they're going to use stablecoins to preserve the dominance of the dollar. And it makes sense if you look at these numbers and understand that the countries that are receiving the most stablecoin usage are places like Argentina, places like Nigeria, other countries where people are basically using it in their day-to-day lives. So unlike most money coming into crypto, which is speculative, this growth, I believe, is actually caused by real usage. And there's a lot of major news related to stablecoins as well that's happened recently. Just today, you have President Donald Trump's, his family's crypto business launched a stablecoin known as USD1. We don't know a terrible amount about it so far, except that it's backed by treasury bills, cash, and cash equivalents, and it uses BitGo as its crypto custodian. BitGo is a major stablecoin issuer. Some other recent news we've had is that the U.S. Senate is advancing the stablecoin bill. This is known as the Genius Act. They took the first committee approval, and now it moves to the next step. And this would give us regulatory clarity on stablecoins, which is probably the last missing piece before these really take off and go fully mainstream. Some of the provisions of this act is that stablecoin issuers with a market cap below $10 billion will be regulated at the state level. Issuers exceeding $10 billion will receive direct oversight from the Federal Reserve and OCC. Issuers have to provide monthly liquidity reports. Full transparency on reserve composition is required to maintain trust and stability, and they have to be backed by reserves held in US dollars or highly liquid assets on a one-to-one basis. So basically, think major ones like Tether and USDC would qualify under this. There may be some smaller ones that actually could run into some trouble on this, to be honest. For example, there's some stablecoins that have popped up that were fully backed by things like real estate that I'm guessing, they may have to have a tough time arguing that would qualify under this requirement. Issuers have to meet redemption requests promptly. The Federal Reserve and OCC have the authority to suspend licenses or impose penalties for non-compliance. And then issuers have to comply with AML and KYC standards to prevent misuse for illicit activities. And I think that's my biggest concern with this is, what does that actually mean? Does that mean that if I'm holding USDC in my wallet, suddenly I need to go through KYC? That's kind of a deal breaker, not because I can't do KYC. I have to do KYC on exchanges to cash out or put money into crypto, for example. But generally speaking, when I'm holding something in a wallet, I'm not trying to go for KYC every time I'm trying to swap for a stablecoin. So to me, that's the biggest question mark here. However, taking a step back, having this regulatory clarity on stablecoins, what it's going to mean is that $233 billion I showed you earlier, this paves the way for, you have, I think, basically every financial institution or bank is going to get involved. Tether was one of the most profitable companies per employee in the world last year. Their profit was in the billions and billions of dollars with only a handful of employees. So you're going to have a lot more financial institutions want to get involved, and I think you're going to see that 233 billion very quickly grow to 500 billion trillion dollars or more as these companies understand, okay, they can do this and be fully compliant. But that's not even all the news. That's not even all the news related to stablecoins. You have this, Sam Altman's World Network. So Sam Altman, of course, is the founder and CEO of OpenAI. His World Network is working with Visa to launch a stablecoin wallet. So now you've got the founder of maybe the or one of the breakout startups of the decade is now diving into the stablecoin space as well. And of course, he already did have, he was somewhat involved in crypto through his World Network project. That's the one where they scan your eyeballs to set up a wallet. But now he's getting involved in stablecoins as well. Some other news, you have the instance of the first US bank launching a stablecoin. Now it's Custodia Bank partnering with Vantage. Truthfully, I'm not too familiar with them. However, I think this is the first of many, and you're going to see a lot more banks follow suit because they see the opportunity to make good money there. You have Circle launching USDC in Japan. So stablecoins are in a number of countries. However, historically, they've gained the most prominence in countries with weak currencies, on which I wouldn't, despite Japan's issues aside, I wouldn't put them in that bucket. But this is a sign that stablecoins are going global and they're helping to spread the dollar globally. They're turning into a major form of distribution for the dollar, if you want to think about it that way. You have this article this week in Forbes talking about the real world impact of stablecoins. So people are starting to take notice, and some of the things I'm going to highlight from here. They talk about 30 million monthly active addresses, an increase 53% year over year in stablecoins. So over 50% growth year over year. That's insane growth. These changes, they happen slowly, then all at once. And I think we're entering the all at once phase for stablecoins. I'm going to say that. We have this startup that was a stablecoin related application in Kenya was receiving 7 signups per second. So that goes to show the incredible demand for stablecoins in certain parts of the world, and they're making a huge difference both in day-to-day payments, but especially in cross-border payments. So, for example, and I think this is important to highlight because a lot of people, they say they don't understand the benefit of crypto. It's easy to say that when you live in the US like I do, right? But you live in certain other places, then you can see that they talk about traditionally sending money from Uganda to Kenya involved high fees, up to 5 to 10% of the transfer amount, multi-day processing times, and navigating complex correspondent banking relationships. With this, it's basically fee-free, completed in seconds, and is a peer-to-peer payment. It's as simple as a peer-to-peer payment within the same country. So when you have a product that's noticeably better, then it makes sense that it's going to be used, and stablecoins are actually doing that for crypto. And then you also have Coinbase diving deeper into stablecoins. So Coinbase has their base network, and now they are planning to bring international stablecoin payments on-chain in all countries. if you agree or your interest is piqued and you think that stablecoins are one of the most important macro changes of the decade, which is what I think, you may be wondering, is there a way to actually get exposure to this? And nothing I'm about to tell you is financial advice, but I'm going to talk about a few strategies where you might be able to get exposure to the growing stablecoin market. So high level, there's 3 ways you could look at it. One would be to look at the issuers of stablecoins. One would be to look at the blockchains they're being issued on, since the vast majority of these are being issued on public blockchains, which have tokens. And then the third would be to look at the DeFi protocols where stablecoins can be used, where they can be lent out, where they can be traded, where they can be deposited to earn yield, etc. So we're going to go through those one by one. So first is the stablecoin issuers. Now, here on DeFi Llama, we can see the largest stablecoins, and we can see that the top two by far, Tether and USDC. Unfortunately for us, there's no way to get exposure to those. They're the biggest by far, private companies. Now, allegedly, there may be an IPO coming for at least one of those companies. Then that would be a straightforward way to get exposure. In the meantime, nothing you can do with those. However, we go down the list. Then suddenly we start to see some that do have a way to get exposure. So we have Athena is number 2, and I'm going to highlight a few, then look at them deeper. Athena, we have Sky, Dollar, and DAI. That's the same project. DAI was the original one, and they rebranded it to USDS. Now, both of these are crypto native, important to note. And then you go down further, you've got First Digital USD. I don't think you can get exposure to that. You have BlackRock USD, which is, I guess, good for the industry they're involved, but it's such a small part of their business. Probably tough to really, use BlackRock as a proxy for that. Right now, you have another Athena one, so, great for Athena. And then you have a few more. You have Usual USD, which I've talked about on this channel, is basically trying to build Tether on chain. They are still one of the larger stablecoins with a token. They have been shrinking, so you just want to watch to make sure their market cap goes up. Then you have PayPal USD. Similar to BlackRock, it's a very small part of PayPal's business, but potentially one that could grow. And then if you go down further, you're going to find many more that have tokens in some form, but in the interest of time, we're not going to talk about all of them in this video. So that would be one way to get exposure, and to highlight a couple of them. So one would be Sky. Sky was originally MakerDAO, is really the first crypto native stablecoin to gain any traction, where you provide crypto as collateral to borrow it, and then they also additionally have real world assets like U.S. Treasuries helping to back their stablecoin now. And you can see that the deposits in Sky have been flat to down for several years now. However, revenue has been growing. So December was their best month for revenue ever, with $28 million of revenue. Their current revenue annualized is around $159 million. And their market cap is just over $1 billion. Now, we don't necessarily know all cost expenses on here, but for most crypto DeFi platforms, those tend to be pretty low. So it actually has a relatively low market cap compared to its revenue here. So if they can continue this growth, even now that the market's down, and start to hit new revenue all-time highs again, I think MakerDAO is an interesting way, or Sky is a good way to get exposure. Athena is another one. So Athena, one of the largest DeFi projects now, barely over a year old. Their market cap is $2.3 billion. But if you look at their TVL, it is growing rapidly, just past $6 billion, is almost at $7 billion. And their revenue is more sporadic. So it's a little bit tough to make any assumptions on that. They do have some decent fees they're collecting. However, revenue would only be the portion of fees that actually go towards the protocol or token holders. And as you can see here, that many months they don't actually have any revenue going towards the protocol or token holders. So those would probably be the top two tokens. You can invest in these via their tokens that would actually give exposure to the growing stablecoin market. Then you have the chains. So then you could also look at which chains have the most stablecoins on them. And the top two by far are Ethereum and Tron, with Solana and Binance Smart Chain right behind them. Now, of course, you could make an assumption on one that's going to have stablecoins, but we'll focus on Ethereum and Tron for now. Solana, we talk about a lot on this channel, I think has potential to grow because it's very fast and it's grown a lot over the past year. However, at the moment, stablecoins are a small portion of Solana's activity and assets. So first we have Ethereum. Ethereum just hit an all-time high in terms of total stablecoins with over $125 billion. So if you look at the recent growth, then a lot of it has been happening on Ethereum, right? We zoom out, we look at change over the past 7 days, then we can see that Ethereum, Tron are in dollar amount absolutely the leaders. So Ethereum, you know, it's second largest crypto asset, period. So it has exposure to a lot of things in the industry, but certainly the original thesis and promise of what Ethereum can do may play out if they, for example, could have $500 billion of stablecoins on the chain. Then you've got Tron. So Tron is actually in many places the #1 chain where peer-to-peer payments happen with stablecoins because it's cheaper than Ethereum, because a lot of USDT is on Tron, and because a lot of exchanges that people hold their stablecoins on use Tron for those. And you can see the growth here has just been consistent over time. So even though Tron is a controversial bet because of some practices related to the chain in the past, this is one of the it has some of the most consistent, probably the most consistent stablecoin growth of any chain, and potentially the best claim to actually being used for stablecoin payments in the real world. So I think that Tron is potentially a play here as well. Although I would expect with favorable U.S. regulations that potentially chains with a stronger presence in the U.S. would see an outsized benefit in the future. And then the third way you could get exposure would be through the DeFi platforms people are going to use. And I'm going to highlight a couple here. So you've got Aave, a classic, largest lending protocol in crypto, one of the largest DeFi platforms, period, in crypto, with over $19 billion in deposits, market cap of just under $3 billion, and pretty solid revenue as well. If you look in recent months, in January, we were looking at around $12 million in revenue, February, 8.5 million, December, 11.7 million. So they're bringing in pretty consistent revenue. Annualized, it's around $58 million, and they have a treasury of 90 million as well. And Aave, if by chance you watch this channel and you're not familiar with it, then it is basically a place to borrow and lend any digital assets. That includes stablecoins, that includes assets like Ethereum, and basically it's like a decentralized bank where it exists on the blockchain, and you don't actually need an intermediary. So if stablecoins become bigger, then being able to lend those out for interest would be a natural use case of them. And then another one that could be poised to benefit, even though it's been relatively flat in terms of metrics for a couple of years now, is Curve. Curve is a decentralized exchange that's purpose-built for stablecoins. That way you can trade them with very low slippage. And if there's a lot of stablecoins, now there's scenario where you have everyone is using the same stablecoin, but even if they're using 2, 3, or 4, then you're going to have a lot of swapping between those stablecoins, and you're going to need the infrastructure to do it. And that's what Curve provides. By the way, if you find this sort of analysis insightful, consider subscribing to my newsletter, newsletter.dynamodefi.com. At least once a week, sometimes multiple times a week, we send out more analysis about things like this, on-chain analysis, recommended readings, and more to help you stay on top of the digital asset space. And for more videos like this one, be sure to like and subscribe. Until next time, this is Dynamo DeFi.